I say, the world is going to put an end to the old existence system. We are going to put that away. And then we are going to usher in a new system. Isn't it brilliant? Yes. In the Western world, Europe and America and all those places now, more prosperous nations now. They are more prosperous because they practice capitalism. Explore. The world says no. Pope Francis says no. Debbie, this isn't the ideal form of governance. We need to have one entity. The idea comes from China now. The government, the state must control everything. Everything must be centralized. And then we have one power that controls everything. That is what we are going to head towards. Now, how do you achieve that? How do you achieve that? How do you achieve that? You must attack exclusivity. Then you need to attack the this capitalist, individualized, exclusive mindset. You need to expose it. You need to erode it. You need to put it away. You have to let people know that say, "Enya papa." And then you usher in that new shift in ideology. Communism, socialism, all inclusive, one mindset. You need to do that. So how do you do that? A quite very number first and destroy the old existing order so that you shift the people's mindset to a new existing order. I'm going to share with you something that we didn't see come. Now, I'm going to share with you idea you used to destroy national sovereignty, contemporary capitalism, and to usher in a communist system that embraces everything. There's no individuality that will put away freedom of choice. Now, let me share with you what has been done. Pope Francis, this is CNN. My lessons previously. Please, let's observe, let's watch. Pope Francis warns society against reverting to individualism after the pandemic. We should have known this. What is to crash the system and lead the world to that one all-inclusive system? Get the crashing. COVID, the pandemic. Individual states, individual national sovereignty. Pope Francis has warned the world against returning to the illusion of individualism after the coronavirus pandemic ends. And today, the opening word, also in the transition, transiting from the old order to the new order. It is the pandemic. In 2022, Joe Biden echo human what can I say? Say answer, sir, there will be more pandemics. There will be more pandemics. Why? Didn't be good. We now talking about pandemics. There will be pandemics. And the easiest tool to crash the old order. No. Being a pandemic, cause here. Did it reveal disparities, inequalities? The answer is yes. It was the rich states that were making things possible. It was the rich prosperous states were producing their vaccines? What happened to the poor states? And Pope Francis is a man for the poor. He is inclusive. This is a brilliant mindset. Anti-COVID exposed capitalism and revealing that capitalism is selfish system and leading to a prosperous world. Francis made this statement from the Vatican on Sunday. News item in June 2020. Praising healthcare workers in Italy's Lombardy region who stood by the patients during the pandemic's troubled months. Lombardy was Italy's worst affected region at the height of the pandemic. Francis later warned people, the agenda is inclusivity, to destroy sovereignty, national individualism, and to bring about all-inclusive system. Francis later warned people to be careful and not to allow what? Individualism. What is the enemy? Individualism. Let's see, we might share previously about 3 years ago, my young lesson way long ago, that COVID was a tool to uproot individualism, which is an attribute of God. But people didn't get me. That is why COVID, every protocol about it was coercive force. Please, let's open our eyes. It is the opening word. It is the transitor. I don't know, a transiting, erode individualism so that we get system. We are going to talk about, I'm going to review 2 systems, areas you are putting in place to nip individualism in the back. And the final movement, the final fight, the battle for conscience, individualism. Liberty of conscience threatened in Great Controversy, I think, chapter 39. Liberty of conscience. All COVID protocols were restricting liberty of conscience. Now let's continue. This is another item. MillennialJournal.com. Pope Francis on the pandemic and the virus of individualism. What actually is the virus of the society? The burn of the society wasn't the pandemic. Individuality, individual capacity to make your own choice. That was the virus. So how do you root it out? Just as they used Sunday to root out the virus of individuality in terms of religion, they started with the right arm. We've talked about the right arm of the third angel's message. He said, the coronavirus has caused death and suffering, affecting the lives of all, especially the most vulnerable. Please do not forget the most vulnerable. You see, he is a father. He is a father for the poor, the vulnerable. You always heard him whispering those words. The church for the poor, the vulnerable, the weak. Do not forget those at the limit. So how do you include all? And your dinner at this sad disparity number. What's everyone? Individualism, liberty of conscience to conduct ages. Liberty of conscience. The Bible says, sadly we gain ascendancy again, and this thing has played out, and we cannot even discern. Moreover, the pandemic has contributed to worsening existing social and environmental crisis, as you young people are always reminding us. And you are right to remember this. In the face of so much darkness and uncertainty, we need light and hope. We need what? Light and hope. So what is that light and hope? We need, as Dr. Pippa said, we need to put away the old existing order. To the old existing order that is based on individualism. No? Here he describes it as darkness and uncertainty. An attribute of God is darkness to the purpose. And we need light and hope. So he talks about light and hope is. We need path of healing and salvation. And I mean healing at the root. And what is the root? Healing the cause of evil and not just the symptoms. So what is the cause of evil? You tell us. In these sick roots, you know, what do we find? We find the virus of individualism. Okay? Look at this statement, which does not make us freer. Wow. Or more equal, or more brotherly or sisterly, but rather makes us indifferent to the suffering of others. And the variant of this virus is what? Closed nationalism. That is why he never saw eye to eye with Trump, because Trump is for national sovereignty, closed nationalism, make America great again. His is against the globalist agenda. His is against liberation theology. His is against inclusivity. You see how two opposing mindsets are playing out? Which prevents, for example, was it closed nationalism that prevented here? Internationalism of vaccines. Is it not beautiful? Internationalism of vaccines. So what is that supposed to mean? We need to have a system that streamlines and controls and spearheads everything. One body controlling everything. This is his light and hope agenda that he came to champion. So this is the king of nationalism, Trump. And these are some of the kings of internationalism, and he's the boss. Macron, internationalism. Ursula von der Leyen, internationalism. Keir Starmer, internationalism. All of these guys, Trudeau, internationalism. They are all kings of internationalism. So this is where we are. We have to destroy the old existing order and then usher in a new existing order of unification, oneness, inclusivity. Everyone must be in. You can't be left out. You have no freedom of choice. It's not what COVID did. So you put away. And there's this occult statement called ordo ab cao. How do you attain something, a new system? By creating chaos. Called crisis. You create crisis. And then the crisis will deal with the old system. And then you come up with a new system of control. So, this is what he, together with Schwab, and who has been championing a technological, economical system to bring about total unification. Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab. So COVID was to expose or erode, was to expose the dark side of capitalism, individualism, national sovereignty, and to give way for an all-inclusive communist system. So the control systems, during the pandemic, control systems ni nyina no. And even na more adoptive free. No more adoptive free here. China. Yes. What do they practice over there? Communism. You have no freedom of choice. The experiment to China. And then we just bring it, we adopt it into the Western world. Because problem no, the Western world, we practice capitalism where it allows for individual right, individual choice. So we have to crush that system. Biden, as I told you, said there will be more pandemics. Why? Because the virus of the society is individualism. And if I hear people championing this convention, and it saddens my heart, you don't know the root of this whole thing. Until where? In 2020, G20 summit, world leaders, when they met, they are pushing for what? Digital vaccine passport. And I'm going to show to you what a decision that has just been made just this month in April. The global elites. So you crash the system, you introduce something to crash it, And out of it, you introduce the new thing. I hope it's a direction of it's a digital vaccine passport. It is digital. This time around, card. You can just manipulate. Now, so you need to have a digital system that it is being universally controlled. So they said it. If you fail and if you don't have it, you'll be removed from the system. So we need an all-inclusive system. Now my body, my choice. But no, nobody should be left out. Everybody must be part of the system. This was the agenda. This was the mindset. It is the entryway into the whole COVID package, you know. Who will you attribute it to? Who will you attribute it to? So the push for vaccine passport. Let's watch it.
I'm Laura Ingram, and this is the Ingram Angle from Washington tonight. The big vax passport push. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, when Joe Biden travels to meet with world leaders, it is a virtual certainty that he will agree to something that undermines U.S. sovereignty and, of course, picks our pockets. And that is exactly what happened at the G20 late last week. Emerging from the Indonesia confab, Biden, along with the rest of the group of 20 nations, released a declaration supporting the development of digital health certificates, otherwise known as vaccine passports. Now, you may recall that the Angle warned about this eventuality back in the spring of 2020. Bill Gates, the Gates Foundation, are in favor of developing digital certificates that would certify that individuals, American citizens, have an immunity to this virus and potentially other viruses going forward to then facilitate travel and work and so forth.
I'm very concerned about the slippery slope in terms of continuing encroachments on personal liberty.
Well, Bill Barr was 100% correct. The ultimate goal is control. But what they promise is that these digital IDs will end up facilitating international travel. And, of course, it includes proof of vaccination. Translation. As long as a Democrat is president, he or she will allow the World Health Organization to dictate how we share our most private health information. And, of course, creating a central database is going to be necessary, they claim, for the greater good, for your protection, and, of course, for your overall benefit. But what if you aren't shot up with whatever they claim is necessary at any given time? Well, tough luck. Stay home. Because you're in a WHO-mandated lockdown. No travel for you. Now, the declaration also calls for the establishment of a trusted global digital health network. Doesn't that sound nifty? To prevent and respond to future pandemics. Now, the language here is broad enough to invite all sorts of mischief and intrusions into your personal data. So what could possibly go wrong, right? Well, of course, they don't see the irony in the fact that China similarly justifies its own moves to crush personal liberty with cruel lockdowns of millions of its citizens at any time an outbreak happens. The CCP orders lockdowns like college kids order pizza. Now, just today in Beijing, they announced that they were shutting businesses and schools in hard-hit districts and tightening rules for entering the city as infections ticked higher. That's in Beijing. Now, to give you some perspective, only 3 people in a city of nearly 22 million have died from COVID since Saturday. So they're tightening their controls in their central Henan province, in Chongqing in the southwest as well. And the personal accounts of life under these lockdowns, they have been harrowing, actually terrifying.
Cannot go anywhere. Everything's closed. Customers cannot come either. What can you do? You can do nothing.
How sad it is that we have an American president who agrees to a declaration that doesn't condemn this type of subjugation of human liberty and, in fact, implicitly validates it. Because, of course, China is the master at using these digital health passports to stop perfectly healthy people from traveling, using the pretext here of COVID. Now, this is sick and it's twisted, but it's completely predictable. Like so much of what happens in China, And our elites, well, of course, they simply just look the other way. If anything, we're edging closer to the CCP's model, not moving further away from it. And by the way, they clean up the language to make it all sound so pleasant.
My argument has been that there are enormous benefits to be gained from that global integration.
We have to recognize the severity of the problem with refugees, and right now with COVID-19, that argues for vaccination, for availability and access for everyone, because we're all living on the same planet.
Progressively, a lot of people would like to see there are two orders in this world. This is a huge mistake, even for both the US and China. We need a single global order.
A single global order. And where exactly does that leave the nation state? Well, you guessed it, on the trash heap. This is why they all hate Trump so much, because back in 2016, he was the first major presidential candidate to call this out since really Pat Buchanan. But their fantasy, again, it sounds like this.
What we will see is that everything will be integrated into an ecosystem driven by big data and driven particularly by close cooperation also of governments with business, civil society. And this revolution will come at a breathtaking speed. It will be like a tsunami.
It will be like a tsunami. And when COVID hit like a tsunami, Schwab saw his opening, declaring in the early months of the pandemic that the world must act swiftly and jointly to revamp all aspects of our societies and our economies. And we know what followed. The shuttering of churches and schools, masking toddlers, mandating vaccines, and now, looks like requiring vaccine passports for travel.
Let's have a digital health certificate acknowledged by WHO if you have been vaccinated or tested properly, then you can move around. So for the next pandemic, instead of stopping the movement of the people 100%, you can still provide some movement of the people.
Some movement of the people. And it's not just your movement the government wants to restrict. It's your financial privacy and freedom as well. Now, back in March, Biden signed an executive order announcing what is his obvious desire to pursue a digital dollar to eventually replace cash altogether, claiming, of course, that the goal is to facilitate easier transfers of money, easier payment systems, and capital flows in the international financial system. Again, sounds kind of cool, right? Well, nothing good's going to come of this. Tracking your health data to tracking your finances, it's all of a piece. The key issue here is whether Americans are going to make their own decisions about important issues, or are we just going to farm them all out to international organizations? We've already established that the left basically hates the American system, so of course they're all too happy to allow other countries boss us around as much as possible. But the goal is always to keep our voters on the sidelines, away from the levers of power. And of course, China and Europe, they're fine with this. Now that their midterms are over, Biden and John Kerry felt emboldened not only to agree to these vaccine passports, but to commit our taxpayers to spending billions of dollars for climate equity payments to emerging nations. Now, who voted for that on Election Day? If the voters in Pennsylvania and Arizona, if they thought that this is what John Fetterman and Mark Kelly supported, maybe they would have voted differently. And voters in Georgia, they should realize right now what's at stake here. Because you know that Raphael Warnock, he's totally on board with this theft of American money and freedom. The Angle believes that all important decisions should be made here with the consent of the governed, not by Brussels or any global entity. Fortunately, we have this thing, it's called the Constitution, which tells us which laws that Americans actually have to follow. The laws that are made here by our duly elected officials. And that's the Angle.
It's a great pleasure to be part of this signing ceremony for the WHO Global Digital Health Certification Network uptake ceremony. You know, a warm welcome specifically to our European Commissioner for Health and Food Safety, Mrs. Stella Kyriakides. A warm welcome also to Ms. Sandra Gallina, Director General, DG Santé, and her team. We have with us from WHO side our Director General, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, and our Chef de Cabinet, Razia Pense. I think without further ado, I would like to give the floor for introductory remarks to Dr. Tedros. Please, Dr. Tedros, you have the floor.
Thank you, Katerina. Your Excellency, Commissioner Stella Kyriakides, and Director General Sandra Gallina, dear colleagues and friends. Thank you for joining us today, and I also acknowledge Commissioner Thierry Breton and Director General Roberto Viola, who could unfortunately not be with us today. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the value of digital health solutions in facilitating access to health services. While the emergency phase of the COVID-19 pandemic is now over, investments in digital infrastructure remain an important resource for health systems and for economies and societies at large. Like many countries, the European Union made significant investments in COVID-19 certificates to help people move around as safely as possible during the pandemic. The European Union certification system was used by all 27 EU member states and more than 50 other countries. Building on the success of the EU system, WHO is proud today to launch the Global Digital Health Certification Network. So thank you so much to European Union for the excellent certification system that you have transferred to us, and we have the chance to build on it. WHO will begin operations of the network today with the existing COVID-19 certificate as a global public good. Soon after, we will expand this infrastructure by incorporating other use, such as a digitized international certificate of vaccination, routine immunization cards, and international patient summaries. WHO will continue to work with all regions to ensure that the network is accessible globally, incorporating relevant experiences and standards from other countries and regions. It's important to emphasize that privacy is key. WHO will not have any access to any personal health data. We will only maintain a directory of the public keys that can be used to verify the authenticity of a member state's digital health records. The Global Digital Health Certification Network will be an important part of our efforts to strengthen health systems and support our member states to prepare better for the next epidemic.